several members of Caroline County's board that will sit on the Rappahannock board, so there'll be, adequate representation.
Have we done a survey in the county to see even how many people are interested? I mean, a household survey mailed to them to see what kind of return you get back. Have we done that yet?
Not yet, but we are going on the response of King George as kind of a model. We will have to get more in depth, but I can tell you, Mr. Seeley, this YMCA will be successful in this county. I can promise you that.
Well, I'd like to see some hard numbers, honestly, because I've had a number of people call, and I've talked to folks that are really on the fence whether we can really support a YMCA. And when I look at the cost of $6 million, and I look at, we have a high school that needs, $9 million worth of renovations. We have an elementary school with $9 million worth of renovations. When I look at like you said, the Y started out at schools. We're not starting out in anything to build our numbers. We're going to build a facility. And the county becomes responsible for the building. We build it, we lease it to you for 20 years, but we're responsible for all major repairs. It's no different than some of the school buildings that we've got. And I guess I'm looking at it from the perspective of the needs are many, the dollars are few. How do we best spend them?
Sure.
And I've heard Mr. Akers say not all of his constituents are all school children, and not all school children, are in favor of, or not all people are in favor of school changes.
When did you hear me say that, Mr. Seeley?
You said it here 2 meetings ago. Not all. You said it to the school board members. Not all constituents have school children.
No, Mr. Thomas said that. Mr. Thomas said that.
I said that. I said all of your constituents are our constituents, but not all of my constituents are your constituents.
That's fine. Now, I'm not quite confused, Mr. Akers.
You are.
But I'm just looking for a survey that shows some people, that shows the number of people that are willing to participate. Because I think, and I read it in some of your documentation somewhere, that before we start down this path, there should be a survey done to see what the real interest is in the why. And I completely agree. Let's start at the beginning and let's do the survey.
And I know when we did a survey in King George, and it was a bit, I'm not going to say nebulous, but it was hard to discern and get our arms around the interest level. But 6 months after that facility was up and operational, people who were on the fence, I tell you what, it's been overwhelming successful. It's been proven that the rural business model, as it relates to YMCA, tends to have a larger penetration market because it becomes the focal point of that community.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the nearest YMCA from King George, and what are the nearest YMCAs from the Route 1 corridor in Caroline?
Well, in King George, the nearest Y would be the Masset branch, which is about 17 miles. In Caroline, I would say to the south you have Ashland, and then, of course,
what, 11, 12, 13 miles?
18 tonight to where the YMCA at is probably about 20 miles.
Okay, and how about north of Spotsylvania?
North of Spotsylvania, we have the Masset branch. But right in Spotsylvania, we have, within 2 miles, we have American Family Fitness Center, as well as Fitness Equation, and then right between equidistance with the Masset branch in Spotsylvania, we have a large Gold's Gym, which has a pretty sizable footprint. There's no question in my 27-year career what I'm learning, and I still continue to learn, that the rural business model tends to be much more successful because you don't have as much competition, adjacent to the other facilities. King George, and again, I think it's important for you all to listen to the stories and the response from fellow supervisors in King George and to see what that YMCA has meant to that community. It's been incredible, Mr. Seeley. It really has. It becomes the epitome of a total synergy-related facility that appeals and pertains to everyone. I mean, you have children learning a life skill of swimming. You have children with before and after school programs, summer, camps. But more importantly, or equally as important, we are doing more and more programming for senior citizens. And it becomes a place for senior citizens not only to enhance their quality of life because they may have had a hip replacement or a knee replacement, but it also is a place for them to share and have fellowship and give their daily lives some more meaning. And so I can tell you.
Could I ask you one quick question?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any YMCA's located near at high schools or schools, anything, so there's a synergy between the school programs and the Y?
Mr. Seeley brought up a good point, and I wanted to elaborate. One of the things we want to work with the schools and the rec departments. We have in Stafford, Spotsylvania, not only do our pools become the home course for the swim teams,
right,
but we have group classes for the football, the baseball, the basketball programs. I mean, it's incredible. We have fitness trainers that not only can personally train an individual, but also do group lessons that are tailored for high school, athletics. And so all of these, the possibilities are endless with the YMCA. And again, I can't reiterate, this YMCA will be Caroline's YMCA and will reflect the needs and interests of this county.
All right, other questions? Okay, certainly, at some point, I guess we had the MOU and the attachment A. Did we come up with the attachment A?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, if a motion is, I would like to make a motion that we approve the MOU between the county and the YMCA Incorporated, the Rappahannock Area YMCA Incorporated, and with the caveat that attachment A, as mentioned in the MOU, be presented to this board for its acceptance, and will be attached to the MOU.
That's the law in the next day or two.
Yes.
Get it from the architect.
Yes. Actually, Mr. Welford and our architect are working together, and I can have that, and I'll personally bring it down here within by the week's end.
That's a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I still think we need to see some sort of a survey before we jump into an MOU. I'd like to see what the interest is, countywide. I'm just going back to the YMCA document that I saw that said the first step in this was actually doing a survey, and I'd like to see us do the survey. I'd like to see what the response is from the community.
Well, I know when we did, again, King George, the response came back marginal at best in terms of the numbers, and then when the facility began to go under construction, people saw that this was going to become a reality. The first 6 months, it was incredible. We did a lot of pre-sales, which we would do down here as well. So while the building is taking form, we would begin to be at the shopping centers and do what we did and emulate the model that we did in King George that was so successful. By the time we opened our doors, we had our 1,500 units that we needed to be viable financially. And by 6 months, and we're right now between 2,000 and 2,200 units, where the King George YMCA financially is not only viable, and I don't want to use the word profitable, but it's allowed that we can proactively and aggressively fund as much financial assistance in that region as we need to because of the performance of King George. So I'm not trying to dissuade you on that, but if we would have gone by the survey that we had received in King George, and that would have stood on its own merit, we wouldn't have done it. But I can tell you, by the time we opened our doors, Mr. Seeley, we had the 1,500 units we needed to be viable. And again, I think it's important. I'm very passionate about the Y. I've been with the Y for 27 years. I believe in what it does. We're also the largest provider in the George Washington District, formerly Planning District 16, of the largest provider of programs for the mentally and physically disabled. And we're very proud of that heritage. I think if you call the Rappahannock Area Community Services Board, they will attest to the fact that every day different groups within their association utilize the YMCA for their clients, and that's something we're very proud of, and we would do that as well. No one has turned down membership to YMCA. I mean, this year we will probably exceed $500,000 in this region in financial assistance for people who could not go to American Family Fitness, who could not go to Gold's Gym because they don't have the financial wherewithal to stroke that check, but they can come to the YMCA. And they're treated, as an upstanding member.
Mr.
And-
Chairman, my motion stands. It's on the floor. If I can get a second.
If I could, before I will second his motion and start the discussion, if that's okay with Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I didn't hear your motion.
My motion is to go into, enter into a memorandum of understanding between Caroline County and the Rappahannock Area YMCA Incorporated,
Okay,
with attachment A to be provided to staff, and staff to provide to the board, so the board can see what attachment A looks like. And what it is, it's to be a design of the building.
Yes.
As to what the building's.
I think there was some dialogue that needed to take place with our architect, just to check on some of the exterior amenities. And again, I apologize, but I'll have that.
Okay.
okay,
Second, and I'd like to discuss this motion. In this memorandum of understanding, it says that it merely outlines the terms and conditions that will serve as a basis for further discussion. It is not nor intended to be legally binding upon either party. I think that we need to have the discussion. And also, Mr. Sealy, I agree with you, we need to have the things, but without a memorandum of understanding of this type, I think it makes it harder for them as a entity to start those types of earnest things, and I believe that this doesn't bind us to anything.
Well, no, I guess my concern was Appendix A is the design of a building, and there's nothing in here about a survey.
Yeah.
So I think in the MOU, there should have been something that addresses that there would be a survey done, and that the discussion would go forward instead of the design of a building before we've gotten any sort of groundwork done as to who's interested, how much interest is there, how much should we spend? I mean, we're leaping off, I think, prematurely in terms of what should be done up front that's not in the MOU.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe Mr. Akers would be willing to add in some of those concerns.
Well, the attachment A I've already entered into. I've indicated that's part of my motion, that attachment A has to be. The survey, I don't know how much importance we would put toward the survey. For instance, we send surveys out all the time. If you want to talk about a survey, the county administrator did a survey on web, on his webpage. The survey came back, and it was something like, what were the numbers, Mr. Ashcraft?
Well, I remember the 35%, which was the highest, thought after school care was vital to the success of the community, and then you had other.
And then you had 32% or something that was saying that was another program, and a senior citizen program was important. So if you add those together, that's the 60-some% of the survey. If you send a survey to every household in this county, you may get 10% back.
Not to minimize the importance of a survey, but we even did a survey when we embarked on the Spotsylvania effort, and it came back. If we were to hang our hat on that survey, Spotsylvania Y would not be there today, and yet, it was a no-brainer to us, and as it turned out, it was very successful. It's just, on some level, it's the nature of the beast. You have to have a feel. In King George, same scenario. We wouldn't have built. We polled that community as well, and we didn't get the response. Again, if we would have gone on that survey, we would not have built King George, and yet we know now that history tells us that King George may have been our most successful endeavor to date. And again, I can't speak enough about the rural model where you have an area, a county, if you will, that does not have any other form of competition. They have no other alternative. King George, and we feel that Caroline will mirror and emulate the performance of King George, given the demographics and the nature that it's a rural county.
I guess, again, my concern with the survey issue is the fact that it gives, again, you're not going to get a great return because you never do. When we did the sub-area planning in each of the districts, we sent out surveys to every household in those particular districts. And the response was not very good at all. We'd get somewhere between 2 to 5% response. I think one year was 11%, and we thought that was great, that we got 11% response from the individuals that we sent the surveys to. So what are we going to do? We're going to say that we received 10% of the surveys back, and 60% of the surveys said, yes, we want it. Then the arguments can be made, well, it really wasn't a survey of all the people. And I don't know what surveys will do. I think the main issue is, once we get into the MOU and we feel like we're headed in that direction, then the YMCA group, I think, then needs to go about pre-selling memberships, and we see where we're at and getting pledges for, memberships in advance. That will give us a better indication of where we're headed, rather than the surveys is going to give us an indication.
This YMCA will be successful in Caroline. There's no doubt. And I want you to understand that operationally speaking, that will shift to the YMCA. If it takes 3 or 4 years for us to ramp up, and there's a burn rate, if you will, that shifts to the Rappahannock area YMCA. We are committed because the Planning District 16 is our service area, and we are committed to bring our goods and services to those areas. And we are committed, and we're more committed of getting in areas such as Caroline, where you don't have the opportunity of an American family coming in.
We're still committed to the $6 million payback the loan. Caroline County is not the YMCA, just so we're all clear.
Right.
Caroline County it's spread out amongst all the other things that we're paying for. The $6 million doesn't go to the YMCA, and they don't make payments on that. Caroline County makes the payments on that. And I guess I don't want there to be any confusion that we're leasing this building for $1 a year for the first 20 years, and anything that happens to the building is our responsibility, except minor maintenance.
This is true, but the survey, if the survey results came back and they were marginal, that would really impact the operational performance. And what I'm saying is that operational performance, those risks, if you will be incurred by the Rappahannock Area YMCA. And we're committed as an association to make this thing work for however long. And that's our commitment.
Mr. Chairman, two questions as far as discussion. I think we understand that the memorandum of understanding is non-binding.
Yes, sir.
We can say go ahead, but whatever you come back with at any point in time, we could say no, right?
This is true.
Okay, that's what I mean by non-binding. And the other thing is, in the memorandum of understanding, it does not have anything specific to location. It just says Caroline YMCA, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so in that sense, my discussion point would be that we could go ahead, but still with the ability to, after your pre-marketing and your sales, if it doesn't seem like anything's going to happen, we still have the opportunity to say, yeah, thanks, it was a really nice idea, but it's probably not going to work in Caroline.
Yes, sir, you're right, but we need to get a feel because, the Rappahannock Area YMCA, since its humble beginnings in 1973 and having its first facility in 1982, we've grown over the years, and the trust and the respect of the community has grown accordingly, and we don't want to get too far down the path, and I will say this, and this may be, and let me preface this statement.
Well, you don't have to sell me. I mean, you don't have to sell me, because really the point is, at any point in time, and you have to understand the reality of life is, as I say in my house every day, who's going to pay that bill? So who's going to pay that $6 million bill is a question.
Right.
And I don't care if 8,000 people showed up tomorrow and said, we want the Y. If I can't pay that bill, we can't do it.
Totally understand,
Okay,
Mr.
so that's all we have as far
yeah.
as our ability to back out.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, the other thing was, as far as the memorandum of understanding, there's no reference to location. In other words, Dr. Kelo, if he was here now, had said it was a great idea if we put it on the school property he's got already at the high school. He thought that was a great idea. Mr. Akers has talked to the developer who promised to put it at Ladysmith Village. That developer or Mr. Akers may not think that's a good idea. So my question to you was, in your pre-marketing, if we move forward with this, you would pre-market to the best location in the county, or you would pre-market to what was already proffered?
Well, I would have to honestly defer to you all as a board to make the best choice that you feel is in the best interest of the county. That's not something that, I would just say that, just from my experience, that it would behoove all of us to try to locate this where it has the best opportunity of success and to maximize, its presence.
Okay.
And that's all I would say to that, but I would have to defer to you all on that.
Okay, that's really all I wanted. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Popovich, you left with a question, and did you get what you were looking for?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to make sure that the discussion continued after my second, but it still stands.
All right. All right, we have a motion on the floor, proper second, that we move forward with the MOU. And with the caveat of the attachment A. Okay. All right, motion made and proper second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
All right, have dissension on the board. We'll vote individually. Mr. Popovich, how you vote?
Vote aye.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Thomas?
I vote aye.
And I would vote aye as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, and good seeing you out and about.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate your passion.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I believe in the YMCA, and we're not going to let you down. I promise you that.
Bonnie's
All right.
just had some heart issues in the last couple of weeks or month or so, and he's
Yeah, but they say I'm fit. I've got to lose a little bit of weight, but I'm healthy, so,
good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need?
Okay, next we have the item 11, first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 103, Taxation Article 12, License Plate Section 103-108, retail sales of the Carolina County Code to provide collections, licenses, and taxation to retailers selling goods at organized events. Mrs. Carter?
Good evening. This is not a complicated issue.
Okay.
We'll make
What we're trying to do is lessen the complication of the process with major events. We have been working with the event park and other counties and the attorneys. This has not been an easy process. What you have before you tonight is to show you how we can collectively work with the business licensing. Now, this will mean that the promoter of the events will need to be responsive to the county with information. There is a fee schedule that you'll see in front of you that would be charged for these events. This is also an organized event that must have a special use permit. So it's only certain areas of the county that this would be effective at all. Now, what this means is we would have an avenue of information coming in that will be very clear and precise as to who is in Caroline and working. This has become quite a task, because right now we are annually licensing every vendor at these events.
At how much?
Basically $30 a piece. Now, we are seeing repeat events where they come back. So we're having to dig out the information, but they've already paid, so we're not adding revenue on that side. This will be for each event. This is not an annual license. This is for each event. This will be done. This will also free up more time for my staff in the collection of food and beverage and sales tax. And we are having to take on quite a responsibility with the sales tax. Tax department does not have the staff to send to Caroline. We are determined to see that those revenues are deposited in our account. And this has been quite an undertaking. I'm not going to read it to you. I hope you've read it. Do you have any questions?
Can we walk through one scenario, how this plays out? A vendor comes to,
As we're doing it now,
and then how we're going to do it.
okay, as we're doing it now, we have to prod a lot and get the information from the promoters on each vendor that is coming in. Then we individually have to contact each vendor. If we have 200, we have to contact 200 individual people and make sure they are licensed with our vendor and itinerant merchant license. With this, it will be the promoter of the event that will be presenting to the county a list with this information. This information will be required. So at one time, we will have all the information, and the promoter will pay.
And the promoter will pay.
The promoter will pay. How he transfers that fee to his vendors coming in and participating,
So all you'll have
That's
to do
up
is
to
go
him.
count how many vendors there are then to make sure they've paid for the right number, because I see it's broken out.
yes, sir. And it will eliminate a lot of responsibility and time and actual money in the collection of these funds. We'll be at the park this weekend, and we'll be down there, and we have to go to each and every vendor and make sure they are licensed. We do have a lot of repeat vendors. That is starting to happen. And like I say, there's a set amount of retail sales, $20,000, that they have to go over before an additional fee is charged with our current ordinance as it is now. This is to simplify that process, but this will not be annual. This will be every event.
So will there be advantages to some of them to get a business license if they're going to repeat? Like if they know they're going to be to 5 events in Carolina at the
You
event
tell me-
park?
Excuse me, you mean the promoter?
No.
Each individual one? Yes and no, because so far we're not seeing, except in certain circumstances, we're not seeing sales individually go over the $20,000 mark.
Okay.
This is also for events only lasting 4 days. Any long-term events will not be included in this. This is for the short visits to Carolina.
And it shouldn't impact anything else that we're doing in the county fall festival, anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
We're talking about
No, sir.
Ladysmith Day.
Ladysmith Day would not fall under this.
And the reason being?
Because they are not, Mr. Fincham, they do not have to have the special use permit?
I was talking to someone recently, and I was thinking it was the guy that ran Ladysmith Day, and he was complaining about the fact that a lot of the vendors had said they were not coming back because of some type of fee they had to pay.
They have to pay for an itinerant merchant's fee, yes, sir. They certainly do.
And so this doesn't impact that at all?
This will not impact that at all. Will not make any differences there.
So how much do they have to pay?
$30 is the minimum for each itinerant merchant. If you are an itinerant merchant, if you are a Caroline County person, that's a little different because we don't consider you an itinerant merchant.
So
You're gonna
what
be
do they
here.
pay? Nothing? Or they pay a lower fee if you're Caroline County?
Your Caroline County, they usually come in and set up a small business license. Small business license has a $50,000 exemption.
Right.
A lot of times it's a lot of paperwork.
All right, other questions?
And please ask Ben anything you want. This has not been an easy one.
Kerry Roberts did call me from State Fair, and he said he supports this.
We've worked through, the one thing here is our ordinance is just not compatible when you look at the surrounding areas and what they do not do major events the way we are doing them currently. And we have had some large events, very large events, complain very strongly.
Okay, and probably need another discussion to talk about the festivals and the people that set up at those festivals. Because, you know, a lot of the people that come in and they have to pay $30 to you to get a permit, I guess, or whatever it is, and then they have to pay $20, $25 for a table to set up, and so they really make no money. And so a lot of the people have said, hey, I'm not going, and set up in those particular festivals.
I understand that,
And
but that's
that takes away
usually,
from-
that's the cost of doing business.
I know, but it
That's
takes
the way
away
it's
from.
done at the park and every other county, every other location.
I know, but
When you have a major event.
I know, but I don't necessarily think we have to be like everybody
What's
else.
the definition of major?
Excuse me?
What's the definition of major event?
Well, then that's not in here.
So who determines?
This is an organized event that requires a special use permit. We're not using the word major, but they're big, looking at the event park. We do have the fishing show. We have Save Our Food this weekend. We have a home show that will be right after the first of the year. It is a multitude of events looking to come to the county, multitude. And after you've worked about 250 vendors, and then we still have the obligation, we have to look at the sales tax.
Okay, how do board members like to proceed? You want to proceed with a first reading? You need more, you need to take it back? What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we go to second reading.
Second?
Second reading or public hearing?
January 25th?
Second reading or public hearing?
Public hearing, sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Second meeting on January 25th.
Yes, sir. You'll probably get a call from someone, so I think he called Maxie today. He's probably gonna,
Yeah, he
To,
was satisfied.
they have worked with us in partnership trying to work this out. And we've talked to a lot of promoters, and I can only see that area growing.
All right. Motion made, and who seconded? Ms. Akers? That we move forward with the public hearing on second meeting in January? January 25th. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Okay, county administrators' reports attached in closing board comments.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Have none.
Ms. Seeley?
None.
All right. Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Rozelle, I know this is your last meeting as chairman, and I wanted to thank you for your efforts this year and appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I have none as well. Do we have a closed meeting schedule?
Pass it to the designated reader. It should be simple because it's personnel.
Make sure there's three personnel.
Three different ones?
Yes. Well, I mean, they're all in one, but three different subjects.
Oh, okay, yeah, so I only have to read the first part. I would move, Mr. Chairman, this board convene in closed session pursuant to the personnel exemption of section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia to discuss personnel matters relating to the position of Director of Utilities, a potential promotion, and the establishment of a centralized accounting and purchasing department for the county and school system.
Second.
Motion made and properly second that we're going to close the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same. We're now going to close the meeting. Close the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, board members want to certify that we only discussed things that we went into closed meeting for. And, Mr. Popowitz?
I'll certify the first two items. I was not present for the discussion on the Director of Public Utilities.
Okay.
I so certify.
I so certify.
And I so certify as well. Okay,
No action items, Mr. Chairman?
no action items? Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
motion adjourns in order.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.